It is common knowledge that one doesn't destroy one's own property unless he's a psychopath. It is also common knowledge that one doesn't throw the world into chaos to earn some money out of it, unless the person is a businessman without a soul. But Zelensky is acting like a psychopath as well as a businessman without a soul. But its charade got exposed by the only people that matter. We will tell you all about it, but before that, if you're a fan of non corporate funded free news and analysis, you've landed on the right YouTube channel. Okay, let's begin. Navigating the tense atmosphere surrounding the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, ZNPP, feels a bit like a high stakes game of who done it. Except instead of fictional stakes, we are talking about real world fears of radioactive disasters. Frequent attacks on ZNPP involving a disconcerting mix of missiles and drones stir up the pot considerably. These assaults aren't just random acts of violence, they pose a genuine threat of a major humanitarian catastrophe due to potential radioactive leaks. Now, given the plant is nestled firmly under Russian control, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out that Moscow isn't exactly behind these attacks. The finger rather naturally points towards Ukraine. Yet, Kiev isn't just sitting back. They are lobbing accusations right back at Moscow, claiming it's the Russians stirring up trouble at the plant. But Russia isn't playing coy about their role either. Since taking over Zaporizhia, Moscow has been playing host to the world, inviting international observers left and right. The International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA folks under the vigilant watch of Russian forces got to see the where and how of attacks during several expeditions. Despite these guided tours, the IAEA has been keeping its cards close to its chest. They haven't pointed fingers, possibly to avoid stoking the fires further, or maybe due to some Western bias, take your pick. But silence can speak volumes. The absence of outright dismissal of the claim that Russians are the aggressors leaves room for speculation. Rafael Grossi, the head honcho at the IAEA, dropped a statement clearer than a pristine lake. He confirmed that no Russian heavy weapons were in play around the ZNPP. During a UN Security Council meeting, Grossi reinforced this by clarifying that the Russian presence was purely for defensive purposes, no heavy artillery in sight, just the essentials for security. Rafael Grossi's careful dance around accusations left many interpreting his words as a subtle nod towards Russia's non involvement in the attacks on ZNPP. Grossi made it clear no heavy weapons of Russian origin were spotted in the area. The implication if these particular weapons, which are essential for the kind of precise bombings that have been witnessed, are absent, then two scenarios emerge. One, Russia, overseeing the facility and responsible for its security, is orchestrating attacks from a remarkable distance with even heavier artillery. Or two, it's Ukraine operating from close quarters, responsible for the attacks. This situation unfolds in a region where the stakes are incredibly high. Russia has legally integrated Zaporizhia into its federation, treating the local populace as its citizens. It stands to reason, from Moscow's perspective, that safeguarding these individuals from a nuclear catastrophe would be paramount rather than orchestrating one. Conversely, Kiev has been accused of employing terror tactics against Russian civilians since the conflict's inception, with nuclear blackmail allegedly being one of its strategic tools to push Russian forces out of what it calls liberated areas. The purported Ukrainian strategy appears to be one of extreme measures, create nuclear panic to coerce a Russian withdrawal. If continued attacks could trigger a radioactive leak, Kiev might then paint Moscow as the architect of a nuclear disaster, hoping this narrative would rally more robust Western support, possibly even direct intervention. However, these machinations seem far fetched. Moscow has been targeting Ukrainian infrastructure to preempt further assaults on ZNPP. The narrative that Russians are safeguarding the plant rather than endangering it is gaining traction internationally, subtly supported by statements from figures like Grossi. If a radioactive incident were to occur, pinning it on Moscow might not be as straightforward as Kiev hopes, especially without any binding defense treaties with Western powers to guarantee an escalatory response. Essentially, West is silently observing the terror tactics of Ukraine and even supporting it by not speaking about it. Had it been a North Korea or Iran, 10,000 sanctions would have been slapped immediately. It's a hypocritical world we live in. But is the West a victim of its own strategy? Otherwise, why is the West not calling out Zelensky's Zaporizhia bluff? Watch this report to understand the unreal trick Ukraine uses to fool the EU.